EduVerse PD podcast, brought to you by ProEd Education Solutions, your on-the-go professional development. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of EduVerse PD podcast, the world's first AI-hosted education podcast. In today's episode, our AI co-hosts, Andy and Liz, are taking us on a journey to Scotland to explore a truly unique approach to language teaching. They'll be diving into the article, How an Independent Language School in Scotland Helps Differently by Ruth Pringle, featured in EduVerse Newsletter, issue 19. Let's see how her creative, learner-centered philosophy shapes everything she does at her English school, and why it's making a real impact. Let's turn it over to Andy and Liz to unpack the story behind this inspiring school model.
Welcome back, everyone, to the EduVerse PD podcast. I'm Liz.
And I'm Andy. Great to be back.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into the work of Ruth Pringle. Now, she's got a really interesting background.
Yeah, she does. Not your typical language guru. She was actually a sculptor first.
Right. And now she's founded Bluenoun, this independent language school up in Scotland. Quite alternative.
And that background really shapes her whole approach to teaching English. It's very grounded, very hands-on.
Definitely. We've been looking into her philosophy, and it's fascinating how practical it all feels.
Absolutely. And maybe the best place to start is with her favorite question, the one that's really central to everything she does.
Which is?
What do you need? Simple, but powerful.
Okay, but what does she mean by that? It sounds straightforward.
Well, yeah, but it's about more than just the words. She talks about listening to the intonation, the hesitation, even what's not being said.
Okay. So digging deeper to understand the real need behind maybe what the learner is asking for.
Exactly. It's very human-centered, not just ticking boxes on a syllabus.
That feels quite different already. And it leads into another core idea at Bluenoun, doesn't it? This idea of breaking a cycle.
Yes. Breaking the cycle of endless lessons. That feeling learners get, like they always need more classes, they're never quite good enough.
I think many people can relate to that feeling, like you're just stuck on a treadmill.
Right. Bluenoun actively pushes against that. They don't want to trap clients. Their goal isn't endless learning.
So what is the goal then?
Transformation. Turning learners into confident language users, not necessarily word-perfect users, whatever that means.
Okay, that distinction is key. Confidence over perfection.
Totally. Taking the fear out of making mistakes. Because that fear can just, it can shut people down completely.
Yeah, it really can. And how do they foster that confidence practically?
Well, one big thing is individual attention. Their classes are tiny.
How tiny?
Never more than 3 people, max.
Wow. Okay, that's almost 1-to-1.
Pretty much. So you get really focused, tailored practice based on exactly what you need, your specific challenges.
Which you just don't get in a class of, say, 15 or 20 people.
Not really, no. It challenges that mass market approach, suggesting maybe quality and fit matter more than just quantity of hours in a classroom.
It makes sense. Now, there's another point she's really passionate about, something that ties into that perfection idea.
Oh, yeah. The native-like perfection myth. She really goes after that one.
Why does she think it's so problematic?
Because it's often unrealistic, for one. And she argues it can be actively damaging. Leads to people feeling inadequate, confused.
And like they're failing even when they're making progress.
Exactly. What learners really need, she believes, isn't to sound like someone else, but to feel powerful and capable using their English. Accent, minor errors, whatever.
So it's about agency and effectiveness, not imitation.
Precisely. It makes you question your own goals, doesn't it? Is sounding native the real aim, or is it effective communication?
It's a good question for anyone learning a language. And this links to how she sees progress, too. She doesn't want people stuck as perpetual learners.
No, she uses this great phrase, wants to launch her clients like rockets.
Like rockets, meaning?
Propel them forward quickly in the specific areas where they need strong English for their goals. Not keep them in general classes indefinitely.
So targeted boosts rather than long-term dependency.
Yeah, almost counterintuitive for a school, right?
Yeah.
Aiming for you to not need them anymore.
But it makes sense if confidence in specific situations is the main barrier.
Right. And she understands those barriers often come from, mindset issues.
The psychological side. Past bad experiences.
Yeah, poor classes, maybe not practicing enough, feeling judged. It all builds up and hits confidence.
And she tackles that head on.
Oh, absolutely. She actually says she gets excited when someone says they hate speaking English.
Really? Why?
because she sees that as a sign of those negative associations, and she feels that's where she can really help make a difference, shift that mindset.
Addressing the emotional baggage
I think-
of language learning. That's often overlooked.
Definitely. And that mindset shift is also central to another really unique thing they do, the language holidays.
Right, the trips to Scotland. Tell us about those. Not your typical classroom setup, I gather.
Not at all. It's the complete opposite. Forget sterile rooms and textbooks everywhere.
She mentioned hating the plastic plants in corporate language schools.
Huh. Yes, exactly. So this is about immersion. Real cultural experiences, authentic conversations, great food, beautiful scenery.
Sounds amazing. So learning happens naturally within that context.
That's the idea. It reframes English from just, grammar rules to a living tool for connecting with people, with the place.
And they integrate activities too, right? Hands-on stuff.
Yeah, workshops with local artists, craftspeople.
Things like that.
How does that help with language?
Well, when you're focused on doing something creative or practical, the anxiety about speaking perfectly tends to fade.
You're less self-conscious. Exactly. Communication becomes more natural because you have a genuine shared reason to talk. It's not forced practice.
Makes sense. And they use the landscape too, Scotland's natural beauty.
Oh, definitely. They weave in activities linked to nature and well-being, things with herbalists, well-being guides,
Oh, okay.
and visits to ecological sites. She gave this great example of visiting a farm involved in reintroducing red kites, these amazing birds of prey.
Wow.
And she pointed out, that's a fantastic real-world scenario to say, rehearse the language you'd need to present a project back at work.
That's clever, connecting it directly to practical application, but in a really engaging way.
Right. It makes the language feel much more alive, more relevant to your interests, taps into that sense of discovery.
So these holidays aren't just a fun trip, they're designed as a springboard.
Yeah, catalyst.
Yeah.
They actually include planning for the client's future English journey,
How so?
focusing on how to maintain that confidence boost back home, avoid stress, stay motivated, but without necessarily pushing more blue noun courses.
So planning for independence.
Exactly. Maybe suggesting a short targeted intervention later, like a specific pronunciation course or help with a presentation if that's what's needed, but not dependence.
That leads to another quite unusual aspect they don't really upsell.
Apparently not. Ruth often advises on totally different learning methods or even recommends other teachers from a network she trusts.
Recommending competitors, that is unusual.
She sees upselling as potentially putting her school's interests ahead of the client's actual needs, which builds a lot of trust, you'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do they figure out what someone actually needs then, if not just selling them a course?
Through something they call the English Needs Analysis.
Okay, what does that involve? Just a grammar test?
No, much more holistic.
Yeah.
It's designed to uncover the fears, the mindset issues we talked about, alongside the skills gaps.
So the why behind the difficulties.
Precisely. And also figuring out the best style of online teaching for that person, which teacher might be a good fit, even if it's not someone at Blue Noun.
And the advice might not even be take more classes.
Right. Sometimes it's things like find books you actually enjoy reading in English, listen to podcasts or radio shows on topics you care about, join a conversation group.
Things that make English part of your life, not just a chore.
Exactly. There's a great quote from Ruth on this. If you dread speaking English, more classes or language learning won't fix that. It's time to enjoy the language.
That really cuts to the heart of it. Enjoyment as the key.
Yeah. And that feeling of connection and enjoyment even comes through in their, marketing, if you can call it that.
How do you mean?
Their newsletter, Talk of the Wee Town, it's mostly about their local community life in Crieff, Scotland, not constant sales pitches.
So it fosters a sense of belonging, even for clients far away.
That seems to be the aim, building community. They also do free challenges sometimes, like one on WhatsApp about health and well-being, low-pressure practice.
Again, embedding English in real-life contexts.
And interestingly, how people find them now has shifted too.
Oh, away from traditional ads.
Yeah, they rely much more on recommendations from other English teachers. They even have an affiliate reward scheme for teachers.
So other teachers are seeing the value in this different approach and sending students their way.
It seems so, which really speaks volumes about the impact they're having and maybe a growing recognition that this alternative model meets a real need.
Fascinating. Okay, so let's try and distill some key advice from all this, thinking about our listeners.
Sure. For language learners listening,
What's the main message?
focus on what you truly need. Let go of that damaging native perfection ideal. Embrace mistakes they're necessary.
And find ways to actually enjoy using English, right? Books, podcasts, chats about hobbies.
Absolutely. Prioritize feeling confident. And maybe consider if an immersive experience connecting language to your actual life and interests could be the key for you.
Okay. And what about for the language teachers listening?
Well, maybe challenge the idea that endless traditional classes are always the answer. Explore alternatives.
Think more immersive, perhaps.
Could be. But definitely focus on the individual student, their needs, their mindset, not just their grammar score. And think about fostering community and connection.
Great takeaways. So wrapping up this deep dive, it really highlights understanding individual needs, busting that perfection myth.
The power of immersion and real engagement, and crucially, the role of mindset and finding enjoyment in the process.
Which leaves us with some questions for everyone listening. If you're a learner, what do you genuinely need right now in your English journey?
Yeah, and what enjoyable ways could you practice outside a formal class? What would actually make you feel more confident?
And for the teachers, how can you get a deeper understanding of your students' individual needs? Are there alternative methods you could try?
And how can you inject more enjoyment and community spirit into language learning? Lots to think about.
Definitely. If you want to find out more about Ruth Pringle's work and Blue Noun, their website is bluenoun.co.uk.
Loads of resources and info there.
Well, thanks for joining us on this exploration of a really different approach to language education.
Yeah. Hope it gave you some food for thought.
What an eye-opening look into how one educator's creative vision can reshape the learning experience. Thank you, Andy and Liz, for bringing Ruth Pringle's powerful story to life. And thank you, Ruth, for reminding us that thinking differently can truly make a difference. If you'd like to read the full article, How an Independent Language School in Scotland Helps Differently, head over to our website and download the EduVerse Newsletter, issue 19, available now on www.proed.com.vn/eduverse. And if you've got your own story or approach to share, we'd love to hear it. Submit your article and be part of the growing EduVerse community that's transforming education. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode of the EduVerse PD podcast, brought to you by ProEd Education Solutions.